The mystery of Yoda's hidden homeworld isn't rumor or fan talk. It's a documented absence straight from official sources. Canon reference material consistently lists the Grand Master of the Jedi Order with an unknown species and an unknown place of origin, and it never provides an explanation for that missing information. Legends sources reinforce the silence too, repeatedly portraying Yoda as someone who never publicly revealed where he came from at any point during his long life with the Jedi. For more than 800 years, one of the most powerful Jedi in the galaxy stayed silent about his origins, and what's even stranger is that there's no surviving record of those answers ever being written down inside the Order. Using both Canon and Legends material, this breakdown looks at 5 specific pieces of evidence that suggest not only how Yoda's trail could have been obscured, but why he may have felt it was necessary to keep that origin out of reach in the first place. The first and strongest clue comes directly from the Jedi Archives themselves. Every Jedi who entered the Order was meant to be documented. This wasn't optional or casual, it was standard procedure across generations. The Archives kept detailed records on thousands of Jedi, tracking species, background, and known planetary origin as part of their institutional memory, from youngling to Padawan. The entire point of the system was continuity, the Order remembering what individuals could forget. Every file was meant to be complete. No exceptions, at least in theory. But when you look up Yoda's own record in official reference works, something feels off. His species is labeled as unknown, and his home world receives the exact same classification. That doesn't automatically prove sabotage, but it's still a glaring absence for someone whose life was documented across centuries. And it gets more unsettling the longer you sit with it, because Yoda isn't some forgotten knight who disappeared into the Outer Rim. He's the Grand Master. He's the face of the Order for an era. Jocasta Nu, the chief librarian, famously made it clear during the Clone Wars that if something didn't appear in the Jedi Archives, then it simply did not exist, at least that's what she believed. She spoke with absolute confidence in the system's completeness, trusting it like gospel, and that's exactly what makes the silence around Yoda's origins hit even harder when you really think about it. This wasn't just any Jedi with missing data. This was the Grand Master himself, the one Jedi you would expect to be documented the most. Yoda sat on the Jedi Council for centuries, trained countless Jedi, and shaped the Order more than almost anyone in its entire history. His teachings, missions, and decisions were recorded across generations. So when a system designed to preserve the history of the Jedi shows nothing concrete about where he came from, it sends one loud message. Something about his origin never became part of the record. Whether that happened through omission, lost history, deliberate privacy, or something sharper, the absence remains. And that level of absence doesn't happen by oops. Someone either never entered it, or the Order never had it, or it was kept out of the system long before anyone alive could even remember it existed. And considering Yoda's position at the very top of the Jedi hierarchy, he had both the clearance and the opportunity to control what became official history without anyone openly challenging it. That doesn't prove he did it, but it explains how it could be done. The second piece of evidence goes even further, because Star Wars doesn't just show that information can be missing, it shows that records can be altered. According to Revenge of the Sith and the Clone Wars era storytelling, entire worlds could be removed from the Jedi database. Kamino is the most famous example, a real planet, physically present, yet absent from the archives until the tampering was exposed. Legends continuity pushes that idea further, with stories implying that Yoda later learned multiple worlds had been scrubbed from records, worlds that still existed but were effectively hidden behind institutional blindness. When the clones turned on the Jedi and the Empire seized control, Yoda chose Dagobah for a very specific reason. He didn't land on a random swamp by luck or panic, and he didn't sprint blindly into the Outer Rim hoping to disappear. He picked a world that was remote, miserable, and strategically worthless, a planet the Empire had no reason to prioritize. More importantly, Dagobah was saturated with dark side energy, including the cave strong in the dark side, which made it even harder to sense him clearly. Dagobah didn't need to be erased to work as a hiding place. It only needed to be ignored, and it was the kind of world most people avoided, even when they knew it existed. And here's where it becomes disturbing. Yoda used the Jedi's institutional blind spots for his own survival, flipping the system back on itself. That alone says a lot about how deeply he understood secrecy, erasure, and power inside the Order, not just as philosophy, but as logistics. The precedent for this kind of erasure had already been exposed years earlier during the Clone Wars. When Obi-Wan searched for the ocean world Camino, the archives showed absolutely nothing. Astronomical and gravitational readings proved something massive. Was there stars bending? Space behaving like it was orbiting an object that wasn't supposed to exist? Yet the records insisted the planet wasn't there. When Obi-Wan brought this to Yoda, he expected shock or alarm. But that's not what happened. Yoda reacted calmly, noting that someone had erased the planet. That calm reaction doesn't prove he'd done it before, but it does hint at familiarity with the idea that even the Jedi Archives could be compromised. Like, this wasn't an impossible violation, like it was a tactic. And the implications here are massive. If Yoda understood how information could be erased from the Jedi Archives, if he knew entire planets could vanish from official records, then he also understood how an origin could remain unknown forever. The same methods used to hide Camino could, at minimum, demonstrate how something far more sensitive could be kept out of sight for centuries. Yoda had centuries of influence in the Order, access to its knowledge systems, and long-standing relationships with the people who guarded them. If someone wanted information gone, not buried, not restricted, but simply never available, the infrastructure existed for it. Which leads to the real question everyone avoids. Why would the most respected Jedi alive allow his origin to remain a blank space in Jedi history? Clues appear in an unexpected place. Frank Oz, who originally brought Yoda to life, kept early production notes from The Empire Strikes Back that offer a rare peek behind the curtain. In those 1980 notes, Yoda is described as coming from a gentler world, a detail that has never been expanded on in canon. It's not in-universe proof, but it reflects an intent. Yoda wasn't meant to feel like a product of war. He was meant to feel like someone shaped by something quieter, and that detail matters more than it seems. A gentler world implies peace, restraint, and possibly a civilization that chose isolation over galactic politics, a people who valued quiet existence instead of endless conflict. If Yoda's species intentionally stayed separate from the galaxy, then revealing their location could expose them to threats they spent generations avoiding. In that context, silence becomes less like mystery and more like protection. Species that couldn't defend themselves were often conquered, enslaved, or absorbed by larger powers. But Yoda's species wouldn't be weak prey. If anything, they would be something far more dangerous to expose, valuable. Revealing them wouldn't invite pity. It would invite obsession, control, recruitment, exploitation, the exact forces that have destroyed countless worlds in Star Wars history. The third piece of evidence comes from a pattern that stretches across centuries. In canon, only 3 confirmed members of this species have appeared: Yoda, Yaddle, and Grogu. And notice the pattern right away. Every single one of them is tied directly to the Jedi Order. Yoda served as Grand Master for centuries, the highest authority in the Jedi hierarchy. Yaddle held a seat on the High Council during the Republic's final years. Grogu was a Temple youngling who survived Order 66 and was later found by Din Djarin. We don't see civilians. We don't see politicians. We don't see merchants. We see Force-touched individuals, and almost always through the lens of the Jedi. And it gets deeper. Every known member of this species showed extreme Force sensitivity, not mild talent, not slow burn potential, but astonishing ability early on. Grogu, despite being developmentally comparable to a toddler, displayed powers that stunned hardened warriors and trained Force users alike. He lifted massive creatures, exerted powerful telekinesis under stress, and healed severe injuries using techniques that many Jedi never master at all. He even displayed moments of aggression through the Force, including a brief choke-like grip, not as a refined Sith technique, but as uncontrolled instinct. That's the key. It wasn't training. It was raw power, breaking through without permission. Yaddle was powerful enough to sit on the council beside the greatest masters of her era. And Yoda? He was widely regarded as the greatest Jedi of his era, possibly in the Order's entire history, dueling Sith Lords and lifting starfighters when it mattered. And through all of it, not one of them ever spoke publicly on screen in canon about where they came from. This level of consistency across three individuals spread over centuries points to something bigger than coincidence. Either their culture discourages discussing their homeworld, or there is deliberate coordination to keep it hidden. Three beings, separated by hundreds of years, all maintaining the same silence on the same subject, isn't random behavior. It looks like rule, habit, or protection. The fourth piece of evidence takes things even further. It shows what happened when others tried to peel back the curtain on Yoda's species. George Lucas himself laid down strict creative boundaries around Yoda's origins across Star Wars media. In interviews and commentary over the years, Lucas made it clear that Yoda was intentionally kept a mystery. No species name, no homeworld, no origin story. That wasn't an oversight, it was a decision. That stance influenced Lucasfilm's approach for years. Writers working in the expanded universe were often discouraged from defining Yoda's past too directly. People could orbit the mystery, they could gesture at it, but they couldn't crack it open. The most striking example came from a piece of licensed material that went too far. A trading card illustration that depicted multiple beings resembling Yoda gathered around what looked like an altar or ceremonial setting, centered around a statue of their own kind. The scene suggested society, ritual, and culture. The exact type of detail that Star Wars has repeatedly refused to canonize for Yoda's species. The image implied more than it explained. One figure appeared to levitate, radiating power, while others watched in reverence. Whether the story behind it was meaningful or merely artistic, it crossed into territory Lucas never wanted touched, showing Yoda's kind as a people, not isolated individuals. And then the image effectively disappeared from the conversation. It wasn't embraced, expanded, or integrated. It was treated like a boundary violation. Claims about exactly how it was withdrawn vary depending on who tells the story, but the result was the same. The image was not allowed to become a doorway into a real backstory. No other species in Star Wars has been protected this aggressively. Wookiees have a homeworld, cultural history, named leaders, and recorded conflicts. Twi'leks have politics, planets, oppression, resistance, entire arcs built on identity. Even mysterious beings usually leave breadcrumbs, but Yoda's kind? Almost nothing. Their secrecy isn't passive, it's maintained. Every time someone gets too close to defining them, the story steps back. And that repeated retreat begins to look less like no ideas and more like off-limits. The fifth and final piece of evidence comes from Dave Filoni, who worked closely with George Lucas on the Clone Wars and continues this tradition today. Filoni has stated that Lucas had ideas about Yoda's origins, but that those ideas were never formalized into canon, and Filoni has consistently refused to define them himself. And yet the way Filoni talks about it matters, because it suggests the mystery isn't empty, it's intentional. Fans have been asking for answers for more than 40 years, but Filoni has made his position clear. It's not his story to tell. He respects Lucas's original vision for Yoda's mystique and refuses to break that trust, even when fans push hard for answers, and even when revealing those details would generate massive attention. When asked directly if fans would ever see Yoda's home planet, Filoni has explained that revealing it would remove a huge part of the fun. To him, the mystery isn't a flaw, it's essential. It's as core to Yoda as his speech pattern, his silhouette, and the way he feels older than the galaxy around him. But there's another layer here that makes this even more interesting. Filoni isn't just guarding a creative secret, he's honoring a deliberate choice. Lucas made a choice that mirrors Yoda's behavior inside the story itself. Just as Yoda never provided a canon-confirmed explanation of his home world to the galaxy on screen, Lucasfilm refuses to provide it to the audience. The real-world secrecy reflects the in-world silence, and based on all this evidence, one question remains unavoidable. Why did Yoda keep his origin so thoroughly undefined for so long? Maybe Yoda understood something most beings in the galaxy never even thought to consider. Yoda may have understood a truth the rest of the galaxy never stopped to consider. Power doesn't just attract allies, it attracts hunters. In a galaxy driven by conquest, control, and fear, anything rare becomes a target the moment it's discovered. If Yoda's species naturally produces beings with extreme force sensitivity, then their homeworld wouldn't just be another dot on a star map, it would be a prize. Sith would seek it to dominate it. Empires would exploit it. Scientists would study it. Criminal syndicates would traffic it. Even the Jedi, with good intentions, might intervene in ways that change everything forever. Yoda lived long enough to see what happens when powerful beings are exposed. He watched species dragged into wars they never asked for. He saw cultures collapse under the weight of galactic politics. And unlike most beings, he had the patience and the burden to think in centuries, not just lifetimes. So if his origin remained unknown, it may not have been about shame. It may not have been about vanity. It may have been about survival. Because sometimes protecting a people isn't about building defenses. Sometimes it's about making sure no one ever comes looking. This reframes everything. Yoda's refusal to speak wasn't evasive, it could have been responsibility. He didn't owe the galaxy answers, especially if those answers could doom an entire world. And that may be the final lesson hidden inside the mystery. True wisdom isn't about revealing everything you know. Sometimes, the strongest move is knowing exactly what must never be found. Some secrets have to stay buried, because once they're revealed, they can never be hidden again. For more than 800 years, the Grand Master protected that silence by never making it part of the record, never turning it into a story anyone else could chase, and never letting curiosity become a map. He lived through the Republic's rise and its collapse. He watched the Jedi Order grow powerful, then fall apart. He witnessed the Empire hunt the Jedi to near extinction. And through all of it, Yoda never broke that silence, not in a way that canon has ever confirmed, not in a way the galaxy could preserve. The evidence makes one thing clear. This wasn't about a missing trivia detail. It was about control of knowledge, what becomes history, and what stays untraceable. And if Yoda's silence shielded a people who chose to remain hidden in a galaxy where force-sensitive beings were constantly hunted, recruited, exploited, or wiped out, then every time he refused to answer questions about his origins, it bought his world one more day of safety. One more day beyond the reach of Sith, empires, and anyone who would use his people for power. For 8 centuries, he proved he could keep a secret. And for 8 centuries, that silence may have protected one of the most dangerous locations in the Star Wars galaxy, not because it was unknown, but because someone wise enough understood it should stay that way. If you want the full breakdown of the Grand Master's life, from his earliest days to his final moments, check out our complete Master Yoda deep dive next. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video, and we'll see you in the next one.